Hey everyone, I'm Maya, and here we are again on Talky Tidbits. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into it because I've honestly been having this one concept in my mind all week, so it's another one of those episodes where it's like, I kind of got a better idea of what I wanted to talk about today. Okay, my message for you, dear listener or listeners, today is don't be afraid to go after those dreams in your heart. Okay, depending on who you are, maybe that kind of message sounds a little corny. Maybe it sounds a little odd. But really, I don't think it's so corny after all. Because I think what happens is with a lot of corny messages, we tend to overlook them just because they sound corny, right? But at the same time, they can actually be very meaningful. And now that I say that, I guess there's probably exceptions for that. But in this case, I don't think it is. What I'm trying to say is those things that you so desperately want to do or want to pursue or want to accomplish, whatever they may be, don't wait for some magical special day in the future to start on them. Just start a little bit at a time now. There's no time like the present, right? Like when I was younger, I guess I should say like a few years ago, when I thought about writing poetry and actually maybe like publishing a book, I always kind of envisioned what that might look like. And at times, the idea of publishing a book frightened me, not because of the amount of writing that would be involved, but just the process of actually going from writing to published, right? You know, because depending on how you go about it, your book may be published in different ways, right? Because there's different options, different opportunities for people out there when it comes to writing. But really, you could apply this to any kind of like artistic publication, I guess. Like if you're a musician trying to get music published, if you're an artist trying to get your art out to the world, that kind of stuff. But my point is, I decided, even though I was nervous about how things would end up, I did not choose to procrastinate, because I firmly believe procrastination only pulls you farther away from your heart's strongest goals, those goals that you keep close to your heart. I think procrastination brings you farther from them than it does closer, because I think when we are nervous about something, and this doesn't even have to be like a major artistic goal. This could be like school homework to make it more possibly, perhaps, relatable. When you procrastinate something, I think it's because you're either nervous about how you're going to approach doing it, you're not sure of your ability to do whatever it is you need to do, and in turn, you just kind of feed this ongoing cycle of fear that leads you to believe, okay, I'm going to go at it when I'm ready, when I'm mentally prepared. But I think instead of considering that mindset, what you need to consider is self-discipline. Now this draws back to that supposedly cliched message of pursuing your heart's desires now rather than later in the future and not procrastinating, because let's be honest, for most things worth doing in life, you're probably not 100% ready or mentally prepared to do them, right? I think for big things like that, or I guess that's generalizing a little, for things like that, big or little, I think there's always at least some amount of anxiety or nervousness that arises just from the situation, right? Because I think subconsciously we like to somewhat imagine what might happen, and maybe we might catastrophize what might happen. Maybe we might see things in a more positive or a more negative light. Like, for instance, if you're trying to get something of yours published, you don't know how it's going to look like when you get published. But at the same time, you know that something is going to happen that is going to bring you from point A to point B. You don't know how you're going to get there, but you just can envision you're going to get there. And I think it's that path from A to B specifically that makes us become nervous or anxious or all of those things? Because we can't see the path clearly. We try to imagine in our heads that we can start at point A and walk straight to point B. We can't imagine the number of possibilities that we might start at point A and go on to points C, D, E, F, and so on before we go back and go forward to point B. There's so many different paths that you can take to accomplish your goals, but in the moment you don't know which one you'll end up taking, and I think that's what procrastination is at least partially fueled by, this inability to fully see the path you'll end up taking, because then ultimately you end up pushing aside that for something that's easier, something that is easier to see where that point A to point B path is, if you kind of get my analogy here. I know, it's a little complex, but I try to think abstractly for things like this because I think it helps me better visualize what the mindset involved brings about. So in that case, I also think, therefore, as I mentioned, something that you truly want to pursue, a dream of yours, a lifelong goal, start going about it now. You know what? If you're unsure about something you really want to do, but you're not sure how, or you're a little scared of getting started, tell you what, how about I say this? I give you permission to start your dream chasing, your goal pursuing, right now, right after you finish listening to this, or even right now as you're listening to this, because, let's be honest, that was a little arbitrary of me to say, right? Nobody needs to, that's the point, nobody needs to give you permission to start pursuing your dreams, or following your goals, right? Or never stopping chasing after those dreams in your heart, right? I think that's what fuels us all as people, as unique individuals. We find out who we are and what we want to become because, in part, we follow our heart, or at least we try to follow our heart. And I know it's hard sometimes. It's hard to follow all those things you've got in your mind that you just want to become tangible and real, but it is possible. And I think acknowledging the fear is the first step toward reaching your goal, because everyone faces fear at some point in their life. The only thing that matters then is how you deal with it. You know, it's like making mistakes. It's not about how many times you make a mistake. It's about whether you learn from those mistakes, whether you pick yourself back up after you have made those mistakes, right? Life is a learning journey. Nothing's always perfect. You're always making mistakes. You're always learning that there are different paths that can bring you from where you start to where you want to end up. So I want to end this episode recording. I know I keep calling it episode recording, partly because I can't totally decide if I should call it an episode. So I like to throw in recording to clarify, because honestly it's more of the thing you could just listen to while doing something else. It's not like a fancy video, you know, something that makes the audience wow. It's nothing like that. I don't plan it on becoming something like that. Actually, I'll let you in on something. When I started doing these recordings, I thought of my little sister, because I think of how she will be when she is the age that I am now, and she will be having all these questions about herself and life and her identity and her beliefs and her goals and dreams. And maybe they'll be very specific, maybe kind of eccentric, unusual questions that you won't really find much answer to. And I don't claim to have answers myself. I'm still, I guess, in a process of self-discovery too. But my hope is that one day she will be able to look at these recordings, well, I say look, listen to these recordings, and think, you know, maybe she can take away some insight from this. And for the record, if you, fellow listener or listeners, are also hopefully getting some insight from this, then I am very grateful for it. And that's the reason I like talking about these things. I think they help me learn more about how I think about things, too, in the process. So it's kind of like a back and forth, both parties learning type of thing. So anyway, I want to end today's recording on a high note with this last statement, kind of. Well, this last statement, follow your heart. It's something you hear a lot, but maybe you overlook. Maybe you overlook because it sounds like something everyone says, or that you hear a lot. But you know what? Maybe it's not so corny. Follow your heart. Follow your dreams. Don't be afraid to start now. Don't procrastinate and push it off till you're like however old, or don't push it off for another 20, 30 years or whatever. Just why not start now? And another thing on that note, you don't have to be a certain age to accomplish something either. I know there's a lot of people in the world of fame that accomplish things when they're so young. There are famous people that are a lot younger than me. There are famous people younger than my sister was when she was a toddler. That just, think of it like that. And on the flip side, there are people that are able to accomplish things when they're older, or when they're, middle-aged, right? There is no limit to the age that you accomplish things at. So remember that, and don't let go of your goals. This is Maya, and Talky Tidbits out.